Hello everybody, welcome to this week's Star Watch Astrology segment for the week of December 14th. Welcome. I'm super happy to have you guys here. If you are new, my name is Jane and I'm even more happy to have you here. We're going to talk about the astrology this week, and yes, this is the week of the Venus Retrograde and Chiron going direct, so it is going to feel like a real shift in energy, which I think will feel like a sense of relief for a lot of us. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alrighty, so this is this week's chart for December 15th. Now we're moving into Capricorn season this week as well. I forgot to mention that in the introduction. We have the sun coming in on the 21st. So we're making that shift as well. That's happening just a couple days after the Venus retrograde and Chiron going direct, which is happening on the 19th. So the last few degrees, right? The last 7 degrees, the sun is sitting in the sun decan, or the Leo ruled decan of Sagittarius. So the sun, I think, is very happy within its own decan here. I think this is an opportunity for us to get re-energized, to get, kind of our passion going a little bit, because man, oh man, like thank goodness all that Scorpio stuff is over. And I might not be, this might not be everybody, but I know that a lot of people definitely felt the compression of that Scorpio season. It was a lot. It was a difficult pill to swallow. And I think all through, Sagittarius, given the nature of the eclipses and the South Node conjunction, it just wasn't the essence of Sagittarius that we normally get to experience. Usually Sagittarius is a much lighter, passionate, fun, little chaotic kind of quality. And I feel like this Sagittarius was actually quite sobering in a lot of ways. But I think the reason for that was because the sun with the node finishing out its transit, right? It's not going to be back here. The South Node will not be back in Sagittarius for 18 and a half years, right? So there is that notion of, okay, well, where do you really want to go? And some people felt, kind of weighed down by that kind of a question. Where do I want to go? What do I want to really contribute? And I think as the sun enters into Capricorn, Mercury is giving us a little bit of a taste of that right now, but he's kind of focused on other things because he's going to be preparing for his retrograde, which is hitting up against this Pluto-Venus situation. So he's kind of already focused here, but he's giving us a little bit of a preview of, like, you say you want these things, you say you want to head in a specific direction, and now it's time for you to really put the pedal to the metal. It's time for you to really use your life experience, your wisdom, your knowledge, your skills to actually do it, because that's what Capricorn and all earth energies are asking us to do, especially with Uranus over here in Taurus. They are asking us to do things. So whenever we are in an earth season, we have to apply. And while there was probably a lot of wisdom and a lot of stuff that surfaced over the past couple of months, maybe even further back to like Virgo and Libra season for some of us, that is information, that those yearnings, those desires, those inklings, those intuitive pings that you received are now in a position to be used, okay? So you get to use them and apply them in your life and to make the structural changes and the structural alterations that are needed in order to support those desires. Now this Mars in Sag, now he's just beginning his Sagittarius transit, which I love, because when you look at the symbol of Sagittarius here and you look at Mars, even though Mars is not necessarily in his exaltation here, he's not necessarily in rulership, but I do like a Mars in Sag because there is this quality here of hitting a target, right? You set the target, you point the arrow, and you go after it. And you can change your targets. That is okay. This is a mutable sign. There is a lot of flexibility here. But if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And the drive and the desire and the ambition will be there because the sun will be in Capricorn. Okay, so I feel like there's an unstoppability for us this month. And I know we have a holiday coming up for some of us that celebrate, but I don't really even see that that's going to be that big of a thing, right? It's like we're just going to do our holidays and we're going to celebrate, but then we're just going to get straight back to business. And I think one of the reasons why there's like this very sobering effect is because these nodes, right? Remember the Kala Sarpa Yoga, Mars comes over the node today, and boom, all the planets are on one half of the wheel. And this is like a complete, I'm feeling for my Libras right now, my fellow Libras. I'm a Libra in ascendant. I'm feeling for the Libras right now because this is a very out of balance sort of astrological positioning situation. Okay, so you're going to have to deal with the fact that certain focus is going to have to be way overweighted in one specific area of your life, right? Like some of you might be working very hard and you may have to, dedicate less energy to home and family. Others of you have a lot going on in the home environment, so you have to dedicate less energy to friends, whatever the case may be. You have to allow yourself to get a little out of balance because the stars are kind of guiding us to do that. It's not always bad to be out of balance. Sometimes that is what gives a specific area a real push, and the push that it needs to really build the momentum. And I feel like a Mars in Sag and a Sun in Cap, there is momentum building. I don't know what you have going on, whether it's financial goals, career goals, relationship goals, whatever it is, but whatever it is you have going on, I think the one thing that you wish you had is momentum. And this is the building of the momentum time. And when we enter into Aquarius season at the end of January, so like a month from now, I think that is when you're going to be like, you don't have to push so hard, right? Because that momentum will be enough that the project or the whatever it is you have going on is going to be kind of sustaining itself a little bit within its own energy. But right now, it really needs energy from you to get off the ground. Mercury in Capricorn, I think, was a very sobering energy. Came in a couple days ago, and I think it kind of felt like, I even posted this on my Instagram. It was like, okay, my brain is working now. Like, okay, I can finally really focus. Because Mercury in Sag, remember, Mercury is in detriment through Sag. And when our planet that represents our minds and our communication, when that is in a kind of a challenged position, sometimes focus is just really not there. The focus and mental, like being mentally connected to the things that you're doing. Like you can still do your things, but it's a totally different thing when your mind is like really in it. And now I love a Mercury in Capricorn. I personally really do. My Mercury is not in Capricorn, just FYI, so I'm not biased. I genuinely love it because it's very duty oriented. Mercury, who is rules mutable signs, Virgo and Gemini, but here he's in a cardinal energy. So as much as he wants to kind of flit around and do his thing, but he's so powerful in his right. So when he has that cardinal directionality, there is so much that can be accomplished. And he offers this sort of whimsical nature to things as well. He makes those things that normally feel like drudgery, he kind of makes them fun because they're stimulating. And I suspect that all of the boring things that you have been avoiding or the things that you have been putting on the back burner are going to come to the front burner, and you're actually going to be like, oh man, I can't believe I put this off. I can't believe that I, was waiting on this. Like this was actually really not as bad as I thought it was. And I think that that's going to be amplified by Mercury coming through Cap. Now remember, Mercury is preparing for a retrograde at 24 degrees. Remember last week how I said that Venus was at the Mercury degree? At 24 degrees of Capricorn, he comes into shadow. Now that's not happening this week per se, but he is kind of still in that preparation mode. The big focus this week, though, is more Venus coming into her station retrograde and actually going retrograde on the 19th, same day that Chiron goes direct. Now, if you'll notice, these are not technically squaring, okay, because we've got Chiron at 8 degrees. This is at 26 degrees. So they're not in an actual degree square, but they are in cardinal, which is a 90-degree angle in terms of zodiac sign. And I feel that Chiron going to, now actually let me switch gears here. Chiron through the first decan of Aries has been really intense for a lot, and for a lot of people. And when I say intense, what I mean is the actual going into the pain of things with Mars, right? This Mars-ruled decan in Mars-ruled Aries, Mars, the soldier and the warrior, going into the pain and suffering and traumas of your life for the sake of not being held hostage from those things anymore. Now, when Chiron moves direct, I mean, he moves slowly, so he'll be in the Mars decan for a little bit, but then he's going to be entering into the Sun decan. This is the Leo decan. Now, I feel that a little bit of preparation is needed for this, because there's going to be two different kinds of people when this comes in. There's going to be the people that create an identity around their pain, right? Like, oh, this happened to me. I'm a victim of, I'm not saying it's not legitimate. I'm not saying it doesn't super suck that people went through this, whether it was like a domestic violence thing or a sexual abuse thing or, issues when they were children. Well, there could be really dark stuff coming out around that. Some people may create an identity for the sake of ego. Look at all this crappy stuff I went through. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And then there are going to be the people that are like, yes, I went through this, but I healed from it, and let me show you how you can heal too. When I talk about the separation that occurs, back in 2018, remember I said there was this split between people taking the higher vibrational road and others not so much. The people who wanted to grow spiritually, who wanted to heal, and those not so much. And then I've also said that 2021, 2022 is going to be even a further segregation of the higher vibrational people or group of people. I think this is going to be the defining, or one of the defining, or one of the stepping stones, if you will, for and with that particular separation. Because the people that create an egoic identity around their pain and suffering are going to be the people who get stuck. They're the people who get stuck, and they are the people that stop evolving. And they plateau. The people who are willing to help, guys, I recite this poem over and over and over. It's my favorite poem in the whole world. And still after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me, right? Imagine what can happen with a love like that. It lights up the whole world. And I feel that Chiron coming through the sun-ruled decan here is going to tap into the people who operate as the sun, who give and don't expect anything in return. Now, when I say give, I do not mean giving with codependence and attachment and enmeshment and all that kind of stuff that we've all kind of experienced, I think, to some extent. We all have some flavor of that. I don't mean that kind of giving. I mean giving in terms of your value, giving in terms of your light, giving your joy, giving your laughter, giving your peace, your contentment, your happiness. This is just your own beingness, and your own beingness, your own essence of you is in fact the gift that you give the world. But you couldn't be that. You couldn't truly be truly light if it weren't for the pain. And now you see that, and now you understand that. That is going to be the kind of the higher vibration that is going to occur. And I think we're already starting to see that. I think that when you deal with people, even people who have been integral in your own spiritual growth, in your own spiritual path, you'll notice that you've even outgrown even them. That you've, surpassed even the people that they were like, oh my gosh, they taught you so much. And now you're even surpassing a lot of your teachers. That's going to be a very real thing for the rest of this Chiron transit for the next 4 or 5 years as it moves into Taurus. be careful to not identify so heavily with that. As Chiron goes direct, Venus goes retrograde. So they're kind of moving away from each other. Of course, Venus is doing her little dance up against Pluto in a Saturn-ruled sign. I'm almost kind of feeling like Venus is like this beautiful, like sexy girl going into a nightclub, right? And these bouncers, she's like trying to get into a nightclub, and like Saturn and Pluto are these bouncers who are like, you don't get to come into this club until you like, you know, you got to drop something. There's something that you're carrying, something that you're doing, something that you're holding on to that you cannot allow in this nightclub. Like, and these are big bouncers, and they're kind of like pulling her backwards and saying, nope, I don't think so. You're not getting in there. And I love, there was this guy on, there's this astrologer that I follow on Instagram, the Sagittarian Mind, if you want to check him out. He posted this really cool thing. I posted on my Instagram as well, where he said like, this is an opportunity to strip down the naivete of this planet, right? Whenever a planet comes in contact and does a retrograde like this against Pluto, it strips down the naivete. And I can't even take credit for that, because it was just such a beautiful way of saying that. And I absolutely 100% agree, to strip down the naivete of Venus. And Venus is so versatile. It could be your financial naivete. It could be your romantic naivete. Like, this is a sobering transit, 100%. It's coupled with a sun in Cap, with a Mercury and Mercury retrograde in Cap. As much as this Jupiter coming into Pisces later on in the month, on the 28th or 29th, I think it is, 28th, it's not technically there yet. Right? This week it's still in Aquarius. So as much as I want to get all flowery and poetic, wax poetic, I can't do that quite yet. Next year I will do that for the first 5 months straight. Right now I can't do that. Even Aquarius is very sobering. There's a lot of truth that comes through Aquarius. There's a lot of truth that comes through with Pluto, because that's what they demand. They demand authenticity. They demand realness. They demand you to be who and what you are. And I feel like with the Venus or the Venusian themes in our life, again, it doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be relationships. It could be your sense of self-worth. It could be your kind of sense of justice or whatever. But there is a story that you are telling yourself, and it is not going to pass through. There is something that you are hanging on to. And I'm almost kind of feeling that there is what I'm going to call a willful ignorance, meaning that there is something that you are hanging on to that you know you shouldn't, but you do anyway. And this is the time when you finally say, okay, I get it. I'm going to let it go. It's like that. I'm going to use the toxic ex example because I think it's one that many of us relate to. Maybe not all of us, but many of us. It's that, like, well, if I just do this thing, then that person will change. If I just accommodate in this way, if we just move here, if we just have a little bit more money, if we just had this, if we just had this, it would change, right? That is the naivete, because you know that it's not real. You know that it doesn't work that way. And yet, if you were to do it anyway, it would be willful ignorance, right? Ignorance, to ignore, to ignorance. And that's not going to play with Pluto and Saturn is not going to play at all. It's just not. And Saturn over here in aspect with Uranus, even so much more it's not going to play. Because Saturn is determined, because you remember, well, this is my own personal kind of perspective, my own personal take on things. Whenever we have a planet that comes in contact with a slower moving planet or comes into aspect with a slower moving planet, The faster moving planet is sort of in the realm of the slower moving planet. So Saturn is faster than Uranus. So Saturn is in Uranus's wheelhouse here, and he has to play by Uranus's rules in the same way that Venus has to play by Pluto's rules. All right, so Saturn, he has to change, he has to evolve, he has to rebel almost even against himself. He has to break tradition, he has to break laws and rules. He just has to, because Uranus is here to disrupt things for the sake of growth. Because if we keep things the same all the time and we keep doing the same things all the time, we will not grow. And Uranus, and I love that he's in Taurus because it shows how stubborn we are. It shows how in control we want to be by taking away that control. It shows us how surrendered we are, whether we're consciousness of it or not, how at the whim and the mercy of Mother Earth or the world or the universe, we could be like, we are just so fragile, right? And so I think the fragility of us, the fragility of our illusion is absolutely being accentuated with this particular transit. And that was, I think, the essence of the whole of 2021 for those of us who are paying attention, who are self-aware, that we realize that hanging on or clinging on to any kind of a story or any kind of point of stubbornness is completely futile, because we can hang on all we want, but a force much, much, much bigger than that which we are even hanging on to is going to come down and crash that illusion. And here's Venus just trying to squeak through. She's just trying to get through just a little bit. And here come these giant bouncers that just say, I don't think so, Missy. No freaking way. You're not going to get in here, wearing that outfit or telling that story or doing that thing. It's just not going to fly. So it is very sobering. It is very real. And it can be humbling at times as well. I think there could be certain points of denial in the Venusian aspects of our lives. There are points of denial. Now remember, Venus is associated with both Taurus and Libra. And the fact that we are in this Kala Sarpa yoga, especially with the Libran component here, she's already feeling very out of balance as it is. Very out of control, very out of whack. She's already completely lopsided in one whole direction, which is fine because it allows us to take care of things in neglected areas, but it's still uncomfortable. Librans and Tauruses are definitely going to be feeling this we are all going to feel it in our own way, but definitely Librans and Taurians, just because of the ruling planet situation. But anything associated with Libra, anything associated with Taurus. So let's go through some of the indicators of that. So Taurus, we know money, we know self-worth. There's also a quality of food and survival and self-reliance. There's a quality of health as well. Anything in the throat, teeth, mouth, thyroid area, neck, that kind of thing. All that is very Taurian. For Libra, relationships, marriages, business partnerships, if you're going through a divorce, there could be some very interesting things that happen. If you're in any kind of court proceedings, if you're any kind of justice-oriented situation, or any human rights situation, that could definitely be an interesting transit for you. There could be an enemy quality that comes out too if you are someone who has enemies. It's like a theme that I just genuinely don't understand, because I don't think I've ever had an enemy in my whole life. I don't even know what that means. I don't know how that happens to people, but some of you have enemies. So that could be a very real situation that occurs for you as well. Anything with beauty and the way that you look, okay, or your self-acceptance of the way that you look as well. Health-wise, Libran is very associated with the kidneys, something like that, right? So, there's all sorts of different areas and different things that this could be manifesting in. Don't lock yourself into any one kind of thing. But there are lessons to be learned here, but they are good lessons. They force us into deeper levels of maturity, deeper levels of understanding. They force us to grow up, right? They force us to level up in our own lives, in our own ways, and they force us, like this particular transit, I think is going to force us to stop pretending that we can get away with stuff. Because when I think of Venus, again, like this pretty girl trying to get into a nightclub, it's just like, oh, I'm pretty. I can do whatever I want just because I'm this pretty girl. And like, yeah, you got to listen to me. You got to let me, you know. And these two, Saturn ruled Capricorn and Pluto, they're like, I don't care how pretty you are. I don't care like what you have going on. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care that you have this. I don't care that you have that. You got to like get rid of this. Like you cannot come in unless it's gone, right? And she's got to get real with herself a little bit, you know? And we have the moon building up this week as well. Let's fast forward just a couple of days to, let me go back. Hold on. Okay. Well, it's not perfect, but here's the moon. So this is going to be the full moon in Gemini. Now, we talked a little bit about this last week. This is on the 18th, full moon in Gemini. And this is at a later degree, right? I mean, let me get back. So 27 degrees. We have, hold on, something just came to my mind, but it's not. It's never mind. This can be a very jittery, agitated, irritable full moon, especially if you're not super comfortable with Gemini energy. Now, if you have a lot of Gemini or you had even a lot of Aquarian energy, this may feel okay. And it actually may feel like really energized and it may feel really good. Now, remember, we'll be in that Kala. Now, we don't count the moon for the Kala Sarpa yoga just because she moves so quickly. So she kind of doesn't like break the Kala Sarpa yoga. We wait for one of the planets to do that. So technically we're in the Kala Sarpa yoga. So we've got Mars now officially on this side. So look, everything over here, Uranus is here involved subtly, indirectly, kind of coming in to shake things up a little bit. Full moon, Gemini, new ideas, new invention, reinvention, innovation, a whole bunch of like really out of the box ways of thinking that are specific. Now remember, the sun is always involved in a full moon. It's not just, oh, it's a full moon. It's like the moon is opposite the sun. Remember, there's two planets involved with a full moon, or two, they're luminaries, right? The luminaries are involved. So don't forget that the sun is over here in Sag. Very last degrees here, 27 degrees. Again, still in that sun deacon here. And the sun is really asking you to push, and actually not even to push really, it's just to be open to possibility. I think because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and there is a quality of faith and religion and higher consciousness with Sagittarius, I do think this particular full moon, it could have the potential of like epiphany type stuff. I highly would recommend doing a deep meditation on the build up, not necessarily like at the exact time of the full moon, but during the build up of this full moon. So maybe like the night before, because this is happening kind of, it's happening this is Central Time. So this is like 10:30 Central Time. In the hours building up, I would highly recommend taking time and just being completely open and blank-minded. Not to sit down for the sake of an epiphany, right? Because when you do a meditation with a purpose in mind, it kind of ceases to be a meditation. There's no purpose really. But I feel that the emptying out of the mind by kind of detaching, right? That's a very Uranian quality, detaching from the mental chatter. Now, we're still going to have Mercury in the Saturnian decan still of Capricorn. So this is not a very chatty, super mind moving a million miles a minute type of transit. Mercury and Saturn is very like, let's only think about things worth thinking about, and then everything else is just like comes and goes, and you don't really attach to any thoughts here. But this one, even more detached, because Uranus is even that much more detached than Saturn. It's like the next level of that. And so I don't know that normal thoughts, normal thinking is going to be very entertaining for you. I think there's this quality of like, I want new thoughts in my life. I want new narratives. I want new things to say. I want new things to understand, because I feel like Scorpio season allowed us to accept that we had plateaued in some place in our life, that we had reached this level, and that's great, and it's good that we hit that level, but now it's like, okay, we got to get up. Like, we hit base camp 1, now we got to get up to the next base camp. Like, if we're trying to climb Everest, you can't just sit at base camp 1 the whole time. You got to keep going. And I think this particular moon is going to actually be the first steps in the trek up toward, is it base camp 2? Is that what they call it? Base camp 2? In the next steps for that. So whether it's your business life, your family life, your relationship life, I don't care what it is, but there is this expansion that is happening intellectually, not even like with your like high call, but this is like your actual mind. The way you think about things is about to be elevated. I would recommend learning something new this week, if I'm being totally honest with you. Pick up a book by an author you've never read before, on a topic you've never read before, or a completely different, like if you have a preference of subject matter, right? Pick up a book, read a couple articles, watch some new videos on things that maybe hadn't really interested you up to this point. Because I think this moon is craving a new way to think about stuff. It's craving a new perspective. It is craving to just be out of the box. Boom. Really wanting to be out of the box. And it's okay to allow yourself to really do that. I think that's it. I think that's going to be most of the stuff. I didn't really talk too much about Neptune, but he's just doing his Neptune thing. Not a lot of aspects going on with him this week. He's just sort of there. We talked a little bit about everything else. So yeah, I'm going to leave you guys with that. I hope you guys have an amazing week. You guys know I love you. I wish you nothing but the best. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.